So now we are going to continue with Fenia Kotsopoulou, who is here, and we are going to do a couple presentation, the two of us together.
Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes. First of all, thank you very much, both of you, for inviting me here. It's a wonderful experience, also seeing and listening the process and the work of other artists. I think this exchange is a very rich, and of course fits my own process.
Okay, so shall we go and watch films, or maybe you can present a little bit of yourself? So, are you a dancer, a choreographer, a performer, a filmmaker, or how do you define yourself?
Very good questions. I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a choreographer, I'm not a dancer, I'm not a photographer, I'm not a video artist, I'm not a documentarist, but I explore the field of dance, of performance art, of video, documentation as a creative practice, photography and alternative image making. So, of course, my background is in dance. I have been trained as a dancer, but there was a point where I needed to take a distance because it was not enough for me, and I had lost a bit of playfulness. So one day I took on my hands a borrowed camera, 20 euros camera for 480 resolution, and I just started improvising in front of the camera. And for weeks, I just improvised in front of the camera, and then I was looking at the material in order to make sense of what there is there, and I started copying and pasting in Windows Movie Maker. Wow. I don't know if it still exists. And there I start seeing things, and I start taking a distance also from myself. And I start being more playful again, and getting addicted with a camera in my hand. So the way, something very important in my practice in relation to screen dance and video making is the camera. Is not for me an object, is a partner, is a body. So my departure is always the body, but I see also the camera itself as another partner, projection of my own body. So, and that plays a very important role. And another aspect is that my work can be, let's say, divided in a solo practice, in duo with my partner, who does Disley, and he's a digital artist from UK, and I asked him, can you just say 2 words about you, because, improvise. Yes, I will improvise, but it's better that you have also your own voice. So Daz wrote to me in WhatsApp, well, okay, you can say that. My interest in video dance is from the perspective of a musician, approaching mutual flow space, but using camera and editing instead of musical instrument. So it all comes down to embodied listening. But obviously, I also bring my software and making practices with me as alternative viewpoints to inform my approach. Daz is a musician, a software engineer, and a sound engineer, facilitator, and video artist. And we work together since 2013. And the third aspect of my practice is collaboration with other artists and collectives, which take the form, can take many different kinds of forms and outputs. The outputs can be a screen dance, a video dance, performance for camera, documentation, photography, and more. So it's a complex. I cannot really define myself, so I decided to say cross-disciplinary, because I just cross islands, fields, and I mess around and play, seriously. So last.
Okay. So earlier on, we were deciding the order of presentation, which is not the one that you find exactly here. And we are going to start with itineraries. Uh, and somehow this is an exploration of space. So let's watch it and comment on it later. Okay. So it was not itinerarios, it was itinerarios.
In Portuguese, no?
Yes.
Actually, this was filmed in 2015 when I was in Lisbon for attending a festival where we were presenting with us another video. And the last day I decided to be a tourist. And I love looking from above the places. So we found this tower in the middle of this square. And I was just looking down. And I realized, because it was a quite white floor, and I was, oh my gosh, this is choreography, of course. Pedestrians are the performers. This is a perfect example of a collective performance and choreography. So I just had my handheld camera and I just pointed down and I just filmed it because I really wanted to go back home and just looking at these kinds of relationships in space. And in that festival, I met Stefano Riso and Sara Marasso, a duet, a musician and a dancer. And while I was looking at the video back home, I decided I wanted to use music to edit it. And then I said, why I don't ask Stefano to give me one of his music? We met there, so why not? So he gave me music, and I start working simply with sound and space and relationships. And this came out. I have to say that mainly I'm an improviser. You can see also that right now. So every moment, every instant, there is something which can attract my attention and my enthusiasm. So for me, it's all about here and now. It was mentioned also before the way that dancer experience the world is very connected with the here-ness and the now-ness. So for me, it was a moment I didn't plan. I didn't know what I'm going to do with this material. But the right moment, something will come out. I cannot lose the opportunity to capture it. So all the pieces are improvised, low budget or zero budget, and there are very, very few pieces where I had a plan, but even mainly as a structure, and within that improvisation always find a way. So yeah, that is about itineraries.
So, and now we are going to watch Inside Out, which has a relation also with music, and if you can, because it's Stefano Riso again who appears in the music. So before we watch it, if you can
yes,
say.
I want to say this is is part of a very complex project. After this itineraries work, Stefano and Sara asked me, well, do you want to come and work with us as a dancer with a camera in your hand to document our process? Because we have an artistic residency in Italy and we would really like to have someone to present with a camera. Stefan also works with a camera, but in that project, which is called No Comfort Zone, which it was, they had a residency and they say, okay, come and let's play together. So Stefano, so every one of us was exploring the idea of non-comfort zone. Sara as a mover, as a dancer, as a choreographer, Stefano as a composer, and me as Fenya, as someone, as a video maker in that instance. So there was no plan to make a screen dance. So all the material that there is in this following video, it's part of the I was documenting and I'm following them in the entire kind of week. And afterwards, through collaboration and editing from distance, collaboration from distance, we came out with this 3-part video work, which is called Inside Out.
So let's get out of the comfort zone with Inside Out. So this is really about music, and you used a lot of the direct sound recorded and you edited then in a musical pattern. But I was wondering, the editing per se, even for instance when we are in the stairs on with the window and all that. The editing is kind of very musical with a lot of rhythm and patterns. Do you do the visual editing and then put the sound effects or the music, or did you have like a music idea and you edited on it?
So this is a collaborative project, and I really wanted to be from the beginning until the end. Of course, I did many videos from that. I was editing all the time. But for this, I wanted to have the direct input of Sara and Stefano. Stefano allowed me to play and destroy almost his music. So, which was for me a big honor because I have nothing to do with sound or music. And I was just playing, reversing. For example, in the first part, it's just stretching a very small piece of music. So, and then I was sending pieces that I was editing with my intervention with his music, and he was coming back to me with a further suggestion. Sometimes he was from the video part that I was sending, from the section, he would compose music on the top of what I was sending to him. And at some point I was like, oh my God, do I really want to keep on destroying his music? But it was, so in terms of sound, in terms of music, his input was always there. And in terms of composition and editing, editing is another choreographic process, of course. And with that, although I had the green light from them, I was going back to Sara, in terms especially of the choreography of the editing, to have her feedback and her suggestion, because I wanted to keep and to say that this residency was about to create a piece for the stage. So all that became a choreography on the stage, became a quartet, became a duet or a trio. There is a video. So it took many different formats. So I didn't want it just to make my own thing, and even if I was in distance. So there was a go back and forward with suggestions.
Yes, but my question specifically is your editing, which has a rhythm and it's kind of a musical editing. Did you do the editing with no sound and then?
No, with the sound.
So first you had the sound and you created the editing on top of it.
Yes, on the top, and then what I was sending to Stefano to see what do you think about it. He will send another piece of music, and then I might discard the version that I have done it and go with this suggestion. So it was a constant process, but I was always taking consideration rhythm and sound and noise. So it was happening at the moment with the sound, yeah.
So you are very good with editing and doing rhythmical things, but you're not a super prodigy that manages to make a rhythm with the image with no sound.
No,
so
it was an experiment.
good.
I let sound also
You're
mainly
human.
to Daz, who is an expert into this. But I like playing, so yeah.
So we are going to move now to Catch Me. So Catch Me with a performance of 3 performers. So this is an exploration with the camera in motion and well, the notion of catching and playing with the camera. So let's watch it. So this is kind of very interesting also as ejercicio de estilo, as exercise in style, to have this camera that is looking for the character. But the first one is really the catch me thing, with the guy and the camera hunting for him. But the others are maybe less obvious, no, as a catch me thing. I don't know.
So again, here is improvisation. Andrea was part also of the non-comfort zone. So are at the same place where Inside Out took place. And an afternoon, we just went for a walk. And I say, well, why we don't just play? So I didn't have in my mind the idea of the concept of catching, but certainly to try to follow or to play to who follows who in the case of in that evening, in that afternoon. So when I was looking back into this shot, it came, actually, it's almost like a hunter who hunts who in a certain kind of way. With Cinzia is back in Rome in a very completely different kind of situation. And then because we were speaking about this kind of idea of catching, and of course can be expanded in different directions. So catch me can be related to many, many things. So in some points he started exploring the space and dancing. And in the secondary, I have again is heavily edited again. But it's more abstract if we want to say the idea of catch me. But for me, it was also an exercise or a practice in relation to the camera. My relations with the camera, and therefore also my relationship with who is in front of the camera. So in these two cases, I was performing with the camera. I consider myself as a performer with the camera that follows or interacts from distance with the performer. The third, it's a 10-year-old girl who was playing with incense. I didn't want her to see that I'm filming her. I had a handheld camera, and I just positioned in a way that I can capture, because I'm fascinating, as you can see, with details and especially with hands. So she was just playing with, trying to catch the smoke of the incense. So Sophia, therefore I don't put this, Sophia was just trying to catch the smoke. So, but for me it was again the fascination of the movement of the incense, the movement of hair, and the camera there was another witness. There were my eyes in that point. So, yeah.
And well, wonderful shot. I mean, it's really beautiful, and probably this naturality she has moving her hands, if it had been made on purpose, would have been lost. So, and now we go to the section of time with waiting on the doorbell, and a very short piece, and let's go and watch it. some short comment on this?
So, Waiting on the Doorbell was filmed in the house of Mariella in Rome again. And so we were just filming for something completely different. And in some point, we were just sitting on the table, and Daz was taking a break. And we say, okay, let's put the camera there and let's just play. And then looking back at it, then I decided to take a section and to edit it with a software that Daz created for another work in 2014, which is the slit scan process. It's a slit scan effect. So, and works with, as I said before, Daz comes from music, so his relationship with everything that he does, whatever he does, relates through time. While in my case, the body and the space are the main kind of factors. So his work is very, very different. When I do my own work, it's very, very different. But when we're coming together, something else comes out. So in this kind of occasion, the effect, because it's clearly an effect, is used in order to convey this aspect of time and waiting. So it's simple as that, I'll say.
Okay, and now let's go to exploring the content with a cup with ancestors, and let's watch it and comment on it. So explain to us.
What was that?
So in this case, you are really the one-woman show. So camera Fenia, edit performance Fenia, and Fenia.
Fenia. This was shot at my place, and it was one of the themes which is very important in my work has to do with construction and deconstruction of female identity. So I'm very interested also in the ways that the female body has been explored, especially during the 19th century, and the idea of the hysterical body. So I came across in 2017 of an exhibition. I just saw an article about an exhibition made in Italy, which was in relation to hysterical women in the Sant Abate mental institution. And they had also, one of the things that they exhibited, it was a diary of the doctor who had pointed out all the symptoms that define a hysterical woman. Talkative, narcissistic, indocile, whimsical. It had this kind of symptoms. and of course, I say, oh my God. So in the 19th century, I was certainly in that place. But it was mainly the fact that the woman who was not conforming into this role of housewife and field worker, it could be very easy in that period of time to be defined as such. So this video was an immediate kind of response to this exhibition, inspired at least from this exhibition, and it's quite ironic in a certain way. So a cup is a cup of tea with ancestors, because this story is really long in terms of how the use of the female body and the way it has been explored and defined and disciplined and blah, blah, blah. So, and I started, initially I wanted to make self-portraits, and because it's one of the things in which I'm working, self-portraiture. So while I was taking these self-portraits, I realized that, because I had the automatic 10 shots, so I was composing these images, and suddenly I found myself embodying in a certain way these symptoms, and let's say. So, and from that, I decided to add slowly some other thoughts, to say, okay, if I had a conversation with ancestors, what would it be about? So, this is a combination also of photography, still motion, and moving image. And yeah, exploring the way that womanhood has been defined and destroyed. But it's a huge subject, so I will not speak more about it. So yes.
Yeah, my first, when I looked at it the first time, even before you sent it to us, I thought, oh, just this a Greek woman looking at the photographies from the past and taking a cup of Greek coffee, I assumed it was. Well, the historical thing, now that we know it, it shows, but I mean, it's very open in its interpretation, I believe. So let's go to Courage Return, where you explore the single shot. So.
Carriage Return. Carriage Return.
This was a clip, a shot that that Daz took for. We were asked to make a video for a friend of us who is a musician, and we found this vintage place, and we said, okay, let's go there. We have the keys. Let's play. So we made this video, which is called Dance Solo. And after 2 years, I was revisiting some of the material that I had, because I was teaching in the university in the BA dance, screen dance. And I wanted to bring an example that is not always about editing. It's also a single shot is a possibility. So I found this 1 minute, and I edited very. I mean, the music came afterwards. I'm listening a lot of music, so I was trying to find something that can match, or can match, let's say. And at the end, it became a 1 minute video. So it was not, the aim was not to make a 1 minute video. So this is a single shot from 2 years before work that we did. And I loved this kind of playfulness, and I love the way that, I love this kind of playfulness, because sometimes I need also to go back into this aspect. So it's...
And here it's what I would call the co-choreography, meaning that you have to, the camera is not following the hand in this case, but somehow both the camera and the performer have to know where they are going and go at the same pace. So it has to be really a duo in this case, choreographing, because single shot, we have seen several single shots throughout this meeting, and every single shot, it's a different thing. So in this case, you have like the playfulness of the camera who knows where the hand is going and the hand who is playing with the camera. But you could have a single shot completely improvised, and it would mean another thing. So in this case, there is limited improvisation. It has to be kind of choreographed, right?
Also, that was improvised. So there are many different shots. This was more than one time. We knew that we want something cyclical, and because the table was not also very stable, the fluidity was, after a while, was getting lost, or we couldn't find the same the same pace or to create a rhythm. But suddenly it was, okay, we want to arrive to make a shot which is fluid and it's cyclical, but in this kind of way, yes, it was a certain plan, but the way that we tried it out many times failed, and that was, something that could be used.
Okay. So, and now we are going to go to the plat de résistance, the main dish maybe of this presentation, or one of the main dishes, which is This Dance Has No End, which is a longer piece. And I have taken this work as an example of really the embodied camera, or the duo between the camera and the performer. The camera is not hunting, it's kind of playing and dancing with the performer, which is you, again. So, and we can talk about it later, but I would like to, before we watch it, to have some indications on the content, what it means and what it symbolizes.
So this piece was made in 2018 and is a tribute to drag king artist, gender activist, performance artist Diane Thor, who passed away 2017. And I met in Berlin in 2011 when I participated in her workshop called Man for a Day. And it was my first kind of encounter with issues around gender and identity. So really for me, Diane was a person that left a trace on the way that I kept exploring issues on identity, and I realized that through time. So when she died, I decided that I wanted deeply to make something to give back what she offered to me. And for 1 year, I was planning in my head, because I'm not good on drawing, so I don't use storyboards and stuff like that, of course. So I was planning, and I had in my mind a whole documentary and a film. So everything was happening in my mind. And when arrived the day of the anniversary, after 1 year of your death, I didn't have anything. I had only the studio in the university and Daz and I said, okay, forget films and documentaries. I want to dance for Diane. And this specific dance has the origin of the urban traditional Greek dance, which has its roots from Minor Asia and Turkey. And it's a male in its traditional, in the traditional form. It's a male improvisation dance. Women were not allowed in that kind of period of time to dance it. And still now, looking at women dancing this dance, it's a bit, maybe not, for Greeks at least. And it happens to be my favorite dance since I was really, really young. So, and the only dance where is, for me, the element of, if we want, catharsis or transformation happens through this dance. I have tried many different styles of dance and techniques and so on, but when I go back to dance it, it's me. So this work actually encapsulates and who I am from my roots, from my interests, the way that I perceive the world and so on. Thus, it was the only person that could have filmed this piece. It was I wanted to be single shot. There was no way to repeat stuff. It happens only once. So single shot, single improvisation, and he knew it's the only, because he knows very much the history and the story behind this dance and what it means to me. It was very clear for him that he cannot invade my space. But he had to be somehow present, but not invading with the camera. So he filmed it. I didn't know that it would be 10 minutes. So when I revisit it and I say, okay, what kind of editing I can do it in order to become interesting? Or what music I can put, because I dance it in silence. So when I start thinking of editing it, I say, this is no way. I cannot edit this film. I will destroy its meaning. So there is no editing apart the stabilization, and there is no music. So this dance has no end. It's tribute to Diane Tor and really reflects who I am.
Quiero decir también que esta obra ha recibido bastantes premios. Incluso estaba en un tribunal, en un jurado, y que le concedió este premio. Pero también es una obra que hay gente que dice, pero ¿y esto? ¿Y esto cómo ha sido seleccionado siquiera, ¿no? Y otros, incluido yo, que dicen, no, esto es una de las grandes obras. Entonces, espero que estéis en el lado de los que encuentran que es una grande obra, y si no, pues bueno, pues a verla igual.
But if not, there is no problem. I don't take it personally, so don't worry at all.
So that has been kind of a trip we have gone through tonight. Any questions? Any comments?
Okay. I don't have idea of this. Okay, it's the first time that I saw that. But I have a question because I understood that you say that it was a dance that only men can dance. So why are you dancing and you look like a man if you are, like you are, I understood you say that you are a woman and you can dance that. Why you look like a man, sorry.
I don't think that I look really like a man. I don't.
I
So
know.
there is two things. First, because it was a tribute to Diane Tor.
Yes.
So she's a drag king, male impersonator from female to male, and it was where I met him. So and I went there just in order to understand how I can embody this dance in a more in depth, to explore more in depth. So that was also in a certain way part of the alter ego that I had created in her workshop. So that is a reference also to Diane Tor, but at the same time, I consider more like a hybrid of female and male. There is, yes, yeah. I mean, this is also what I am. I mean, there is a bit of if I
Yes,
like
it was like the
very. It's the shadow also. It was
yes.
very thin because I can make it more credible in terms of maleness. But the elements that characterize this kind of manhood is my hairy legs,
Yes,
which I
yes,
have them with
yes.
me
No,
always.
it wasn't by the
Yeah,
hair
yeah,
of
yeah.
the legs. It was like
And
the
also
beard, yes.
this kind of men. And also it's a reference to the fact that always they told me, even men, since I was kid, you need to wear trousers and go to dance this dance. You know, well, you're almost like you're allowed to dance it, but certainly there is you have to look like, you know. So it's almost like a response into. I consider this kind of fusion of male and female anyway part of who I am. So it was not just a character, it was something which is also related, an exploration, a personal kind of exploration on identity. But therefore the dress also. It remains to be a dress, a bit of hair, and make a difference.
Okay, thank you.
And just as a comment, the images I saw of Fenya before meeting her was This Dance Has No End, and the image of her in the hysterical woman, a kappa with ancestors. So I was really wondering, what is she going to look like? And then it was like, yeah, a nice girl.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make the comment that the two films, A Couple with Ancestors and Carriage Return, sorry, not Carriage Return, the one we just saw, This Dance Has No End, remind me of the theme of portraiture that we spoke about. They feel like, but not just self-portrait, but exploratory ancestral portrait or something that has a very deep meaning. And I just was quite conscious that those two films are extremely strong because they're sort of exploring something that's very real from within. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, after this film we just saw, it's like for me it's like no many questions allowed because I think it contains the three things that for me is like the most thing in art is like less is more. And in this point, I thank you for not adding music as a musician. The second one is like a strong love is put on it. In this case, to this dark queen for you. And the third thing is this strong background, cultural background you have from your Greece tradition. No? So I just wanted to say this and nothing less to say about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. to be honest, this was not a work that when I decided that I don't touch it, I say, okay, that is something personal, and I mean, based in living in a very visual, in a very visually stimulated culture and time. I didn't consider the moment that can arrive something from this work, and I was not planning. I didn't know if to send it in festivals which is about video performance for camera or dance video or what or nothing. And it was only when I decided to first time expose it. It was in an experimental screen dance festival in Mexico, Movimiento en Movimiento, and where it got also the first prize. But it came as a surprise to me because I think that because it carries so much meaning to me, sometimes I consider, okay, if people or viewers don't know the whole history behind, they will not connect. And I was really happy to understand that my intention is relevant only until the moment that I do what I do. Afterwards, when it's out there, is irrelevant my intention, is irrelevant what there is the background, is relevant if there is something to be felt or seen. And any interpretation or any kind of meaning or reaction is very welcome because it's not anymore just mine. It's out there and has its own kind of life.
I just wanted to say in relation to what you've just said, while I was watching This Dance Has No End, I was asking myself the same question. If I didn't know this history, would I be engaged with it? And I was engaged with it, but it reminded me also of our previous session where Blas brought up the point of couples versus duos and eye contact and all of that kind of thing. And that got me thinking about internal eye contact or internal viewing vision, which happens a lot with dancers when they're in deep performance. We saw it in this solo dance outside earlier this evening. But what came to me really was, in relation to the previous session, was that in your piece, I think I would know, without knowing any of the history, I would know, it reminded me of watching one of these old early 20th century iconic dance pieces where people were just almost very naively within the dance. There's a naivety and a self-belief in the performance. And I think in relation to some of the other pieces we've seen over these last few days, there's something about when people are real that compels us as an audience, I feel. And while there's great merit within screen dance and all the amazing special effects and all the beautiful vision that we can create, there is also something that has to do with that, really bringing something very real to it. So for me, this dance has no end. This question has no end. I've no answer to my own question, but I just know that the engagement happened because I felt the naive engagement that was in there somehow, innocence in some way.
Thank you.
What a sense of choreography and structure you have, like of the tempo. We know when it starts, we know when it ends, and it ends and it really starts, and that's something extremely difficult, especially in a single take shot. So that's amazing.
Y realizo también cuando has dicho solamente podía hacerlo con DAS. Lo entiendo porque hay una connivencia y un respeto grande de la video hacia la persona que baila. Es un lienzo muy fuerte y solamente se puede hacer con dos personas que se entienden muy fuerte también. Y por eso estremece también esta video, porque hay una fuerza de la danza que parece como una bruja también que tiene un mensaje, pero no se puede adivinar cualquiera. Pero el video sí lo entiende y lo respeta, se pone a la disposición de las tres personas, porque yo he visto tres personas cada vez.
Yeah, this wouldn't have been possible without DAS, and not in terms that someone else, a filmmaker or someone who really is an expert on video, of course, can film it, but it's not about that. It's not about pleasing any eye in terms of movement, in terms of skills. And there is a sensitivity which, if it's not captured, for me, for my own eyes afterwards, if it's not captured, it died. It was dead. Therefore, it was, the dance would have been remained unseen. So, and DAS knows, because we speak a lot about this, and every time that I touch this genre and this dance, it happens after a long time, because it's something that I respect profoundly, but at the same time, it can happen only when I feel it. And I can make it look more interesting, let's say, in terms of movement, but then I will kill it. So the same with the camera. So, I mean, it is, yeah, this dance has no end by Fenya, but it's by Fenya, of course, by Fenya and DAS. It's just that because of the meaning that carries for me, and we don't care so much about authorship of who did what. So it has my name as the author, but it's certainly a silent dialogue, I want to say, between me and DAS.
I just would say three things, short things. And first, I like to watch this kind of works because it's like the technical default work, like you start and you're a filmmaker. I'm not talking about me, and I see that it's focused, and the sound of the camera, the movement is like, you know, and it's amazing how I forget completely this, let's say, the technical defaults, you know, because I got completely into the story. And the second thing is that there is a magical ambience that I cannot describe. It's like you are watching this and you feel that you are in this place, and you have a dialogue with the artist, a really inner, deep dialogue. You feel the artist, you touch the skin, and you touch also the emotions. This is something also that it happens to me when I watch this kind of your piece. The emotions, for me, I got emotional watching this because, I don't know, it touched me very inner, and that drives me to the third thing, that for me it has a connection maybe with this dance, like flamenco dance, that we didn't talk about it, and the way of contains a lot of anger, crying, I don't know, sadness, melancholy, but then the body starts to talk. Maybe not dancing a lot, maybe just making a pose, maybe the head, maybe the strength, you know. This is something, I don't know, maybe Mediterranean. I'm not sure if now Blas will tell me. Yeah. But now Blas, he doesn't like this because he thinks that I'm talking like, but these roots that I can understand, you are Greece, but when I watch, I say, oh my God, I want to cry, or I want to hug you, I don't know, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to all the participants, and thank you for these wonderful works that we have seen, and these comments that we have received to understand better the works. So thank you for the people also for coming from Greece, Australia, the US.